In today's video, you're gonna learn how to attach your own character to motion capture data in Cinema 4D. Let's do it. Hey, it's Nick here from Greyscalegorilla, giving you the tools, training, and tutorials to help make you a better motion designer. Now, before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you haven't checked it out, our Intro to Cinema 4D series is a completely free way to learn a ton of Cinema 4D. Be sure to check it out in the description down below. All right, today's tutorial is all about a simple way to bind any character to motion capture data. We've been getting this question a lot in the comments. And it's basically this whole motion capture thing through all of our videos that we've been making is great, Nick, but how do I start to integrate my own designs or a character that somebody else made and kind of integrate it into motion capture? And today's just gonna be a really simple way to start to approach that. We're gonna learn how to bind things onto the joint chains. So let's head on in and let's get started.
All right, we're going to do this technique with two different types of FBX data. This first one has kind of a pose, this kind of YX pose, whatever this is, that will allow you to easily rig a character or bind a character to this joint chain so that when you hit play, then it'll just kind of stick right to it. So this will be the easier one of the two, but I wanted to include this because a lot of motion capture data, including a lot of stuff from the Carnegie Mellon downloads that I mentioned in other videos, have this pose as frame 0 so that it's really easy to rig. And then what we're going to do is jump into this one. This is the one we've been using for a lot of the other motion capture videos. And this is that Northern Soul floor combo. This is kind of that breakdancing thing going on. And we're gonna also rig this up. So first, let's do the easier one just to get an idea of the workflow. And what we're gonna use is this character right here, this figure. Now, you could use other characters. There's obviously a lot more complexity when you start talking about other characters with different body shapes and drastically different kind of geometry and stuff like that. So, you know, this isn't a full rigging tutorial by any means. I just know enough here to be a little bit dangerous and to get this working. So I thought I'd show you basically this workflow so you can get started. And then if you're interested in rigging and all this stuff, you may want to look further into it in other videos. So, all right, let's get right to it. So this figure is really cool because not only does it almost fit this character like by default, but also if we hit C while our character or our figure is highlighted, we're gonna get a full chain of hierarchy that's ready to pose. And this just means that you could see our bones here are a little bit off from our figure, these elbows and the way that this arm is being bent. But because this figure breaks out instantly into a nice little hierarchy, that means we could do things like this. Grab the left thigh, for example, and the left thigh actually looks pretty good. But our right thigh kind of moves in further and over to the side, right? It's not quite symmetrical. So we could grab our left thigh, grab our rotate tool, and move that knee into place. You see how now it's a little bit more aligned to that joint? And now we're a little bit closer. Now up here, we need even a little more work. Let's grab our upper body, left upper arm, and just angle this in. That'll be a little bit even. And then let's open that up and go to left lower arm and angle this in. Now you're gonna see, you know, we're already not perfect here. And the hand should be out here. But I wanted to do this really kind of quick and dirty because I found that it is pretty forgiving with certain geometry. Sometimes it's just broken. And, you know, that's where, you know, getting more into official rigging might help. But I wanted to show you kind of how robust this is, especially with this figure. Okay, so we have a rough, you know, idea here. And of course, if we hit play, nothing happens, right? We gotta basically stick all this geometry to our bone structure. And the way you do that is to, first of all, you have to make all this geometry one piece of geometry. And so to do that, what I always do is highlight the first object here, right click, go to select children, and then right click again once everything's selected and say connect objects. So now I can kind of hide this piece, and now all this geometry is all connected together. Now what we need to do is bind it to this entire joint chain. Now this entire joint chain has all this hierarchy as well. So we want to select the top one, right click on the top one, go to select children. That's going to connect all of our joints, or select them all. Then I'm going to hold down Command on my keyboard, and I'm gonna click the other geometry so that all of it's highlighted, right? I want my new geometry and all the bones. And then I go to Character, Commands, Bind. Now, hopefully, when we hit play, we have a dancing character. So check it out. Pretty quickly, we took this motion capture data, took our character, and snapped it right to it. It's like a Frankenstein moment here. Our character comes alive and is jumping around, right? That was pretty simple because we had that first pose, right? And again, there's a lot more that we could do to kind of set this up. Some of the weighting might be off and all that stuff. And again, that's for another video. I wanted to show you just the rough idea on getting into it. And basically, when things go wrong, if it doesn't work out, what I try to do is kind of realign things. I kind of undo. And the best way to undo is just kind of go back to frame 1, delete the skin, and then I delete all this weighting. And then I kind of reset my skeleton with all these bones here, and then I redo the bind. Okay, so that's kind of my workflow right now. That's as far as as far as my knowledge is on setting up these kind of systems. So let's do something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to go to this setup here, and this motion capture is great. The quality of it's amazing, but it doesn't have that first frame of that Y pose or X pose, or I forget what that's called. So what do you do then? Well, you just do the same thing. It's just a little bit more complicated. You grab the figure and you try to kind of put it in place, and you always want to put it in place from the first part of the figure. So remember, you want to highlight the figure, hit C to open it up, and then we have this first part of the figure is really where you want to start. So the pelvis you want to make sure is in the right place, so that everything else starts to align. The spine is pretty straight, but what we really need to do is focus on these shoulders and arms and elbows and kind of angle them down into that first position. So let's start just at the top of the rig here. We have to move the leg back, it looks like, quite a bit more. And again, you want to make sure it's as close as possible. This is, some more of the tedious stuff that can happen in 3D, but that is okay. If you're willing to do some of this tedious stuff here, get some really cool results and get some dancing characters. Okay, so already, a little tricky here. Slowly go through it, bend the foot down. Let's do this next one. Right thigh. Boom. Move it forward. Looks like it needs to go this way a little bit. And, make sure you're doing things that a human body can do, okay? You don't want to bend the knee this way, obviously. You want to think a little bit about, how this character is set up. You don't want to put him in a position, that is backwards. Even look at this. Like, the head is leaning forward a little bit more. So maybe we should have started with that pelvis just kind of tilting forward. This will align our head and our hips a little bit more, and really put our shoulders in a place that are even better. So we really should have done that. And we try to leave our mistakes in here as we do them, because everyone makes mistakes here. This is just how you do it. You learn. You try it, you break it, you keep doing it. All right, so that's better. That put our head in a better spot, and then our shoulders. So let's get into the arms, upper body, left arm, and boom, bam. Now Chris is really good at this rigging stuff, and he actually probably knows the real ways to do this. And if we ask him real nicely, maybe he'll help us with some of this stuff. I could see him shaking his head right now, but this works surprisingly well if you just want to play around with this stuff. You just get started with character animation. Don't be afraid to try stuff that you don't know how to do. It's just a computer. Whoa. It's got to go down. It's just a computer. Nothing's going to blow up. Everything will be fine. Just experiment, play around. I'm going to open that hierarchy up, go to the right arm, move that down. And again, we're working in 3D, so sometimes it looks right here, and then I zoom around, I'm like, oh no, I got to move forward, right? And maybe you want to use some of these views to kind of get a good idea of how it is. But I'm pretty loose with all this stuff. Just kind of playing around here and see how close we could get. Okay, so that's not perfect, but let's give it a shot. Let's just do that same exact thing, okay? I'm going to right-click on the top of our geometry here, and you also may want to save at this point, right? Because if it doesn't work, you want to kind of come back, and you could select all children. Boom, select children. I'm saying boom a lot lately. Boom. It's not a good catchphrase, Nick. Then you want to go to connect objects. You have one piece of geometry. Let's turn off the other piece so we don't get confused. And let's remember to select all children here. Bang. Oh, see, I switched it up. And then you can command click on this geometry. Try to make sure you're doing all this on frame 0 just so you have a reference point. And go to your character commands bind. Now, let's see how we did. Okay, not bad. Pretty cool. Again, this is very kind of a sloppy way to do it, but if you just need a basic character in your animation, or if you got some other kind of stuff, you just want a character down in the corner, like looking up at the logo you made or something, this is totally doable and pretty simple for someone like me that kind of gets shies away from some of the rigging and character, and this whole menu is a mystery to someone like me. But I guess don't be afraid to learn some of these basic things, because I certainly was early on, and just learning some basic stuff can get you some really cool animations. And remember, this is just our basic figure. Any character that you could find and pose in any way, you could experiment with, bring it in, and see how it looks. Okay, so that brings us to this animation, which is what I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial about kind of what we're trying to make. And I wanted to show you this because you should be able to, with everything you just saw, get to this point. Now, the only new stuff here is that we have 2 characters instead of 1, and in that way, you could just copy and paste data from one scene to another to combine them. And the other thing I did here was I moved them around, and if you ever want to move an entire sequence around, you could just group it all in a null, the figure and the joint chain, put it all in a null, and then you can actually move it around the scene like this and move it away from the other character, right? So that leads us to this animation. And really, you should be able, again, to pull this off. The helmet, if you're not sure how to set that up, the way I did that was I used our Daft Punk helmets. You can get these on our website. I'll put a link below in the description on YouTube. These helmets, I just scaled into place on frame 1, and I parented it to the correct part of the joint chain. So for me, it was putting it on the head joint here inside of these FBX. So find the neck or the head and parent these helmets to it, and then they'll stick and move around. And then I just used top coat to make some really simple gold and kind of chrome textures for the helmet. And I used the built-in visor texture here, added a little bit of glow. But stuff that we do in other tutorials, I think that you could follow along. In fact, I encourage you to do that. Take this character, get some FBX sequence, follow along and do this, and either get these helmets, do it, or find something fun online and just kind of stick it to the character and try to make your own little character here using the techniques that we've done. And one more thing I wanted to show you is a little bit of the compositing that I added to this scene. And I always like showing this part because you could add some very drastically different looks just by rendering out of Cinema 4D. So just to be clear, this is what it looked like on the way out of Cinema. I just rendered this with an alpha channel. No background, no shadows, nothing. Just reflections and the characters. Actually rendered relatively quickly, 20 seconds a frame here. And I'm just on an iMac, so, you know, it's no big machine or anything. But then I was able to get some really fun effects in After Effects using some plugins and some compositing techniques. So I just wanted to break down where I ended up as far as compositing here, just so you can understand all the parts that went into this animation. So of course we have our original render, which is here. And that is just that render. Now you could already see that there's a few things added on top of it. And if we go to our effects controller, you could see that, nope, that's the wrong one. There it is. There is Real Smart Motion Blur, which I use on almost every one of my 3D renders. And that just gives us some realistic motion blur on our characters. And that makes them look a lot more realistic. You can see the blur on like his foot there and up here. Then on top of that, we have some glow. So this is without glow, with glow. This just kind of blooms out some of the bright areas of our scene. On top of that, I added Star Glow. Star Glow is from Trapcode from Red Giant. I'll link that up in the description as well. If you haven't played around with Trapcode plugins, they're just so useful in all these compositing techniques, especially if you're trying to get these kind of looks. Star Glow adds those little streaks. You see it on and off right there. So on top of that, I added some echoes. So all I did is, because I had an alpha version of our characters, I just stacked them behind and offset them in time. And then that created a little bit of an echo as they dance around. So you can see right there, you got an echo, you got it right here. Really, really simple technique, but effective in getting that kind of weird delay there. All right. On top of that, we have the VHS look. And now this looks a little weird because there's no backdrop. So let's turn on our black background. Remember, it's on an alpha, so we have to add a backdrop. VHS is also from Red Giant. This is part of their Universe collection. And they just nailed it with this VHS look. Like before, after. Like it adds everything. It adds these lines. There's all these presets. Adds all this static and waving and color offset. And it's just a really cool little look to get this kind of old school feel to it. And, you know, Daft Punk, it kind of reminds me of that kind of stuff. They always do like the real old cameras on their music videos and stuff. So anyway, that is the VHS look. On top of that, I added a little bit of curves just to brighten it up. And then behind them, I added 2 sets of particular. And these are also offset just to give this little delay kind of feel. And this almost gives them a little dance floor because it's coming out from the center here. Again, this is just one of the presets from Particular. Really, really simple. And again, this is from Trapcode and Red Giant. All the links to all that stuff's in the description. In fact, we have other videos about some of these plugins if you're interested. But just stuff I use all the time for these kind of effects. All that stuff comes together, if I unsolo it, to create this pretty fun little animation here, all with FBX, motion capture, some reflection, some top coat, some HDRs, some plugins here. You know, we used it all in this process, but that's really the process of motion design, right? It's combining all these tools and plugins and presets and all these little fun things that are possible to create you know, something that is all your own. And that's really what we're ultimately learning here, hopefully, is not just how to make this exact look, but it's how to learn each of these little pieces to then snap them together like Legos in your own way to create your own animation, right? So as always, I invite you to experiment with these things, play around, and as always, if you make something based on this tutorial, please link it up in the comments, either on YouTube or on our website. We always love seeing what you guys are up to, what you're learning, and if you have any questions as well. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks again for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also check out our Intro to Cinema 4D series. Hundreds of people over the last month have been going through our absolutely free Intro to Cinema 4D series to learn Cinema 4D the fastest way possible. Check it out in the description down below and also right here on YouTube. All right, that is it from us today. I'll see you in another video really soon. Bye, everybody. Can't have enough of these. You can't have enough charger cables, because My phone, my battery's bad. Nothing here. Battery's gonna run out. The battery is gonna run out. Hey, the battery is gonna run out. Hey.